All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Perspective. I'm your host, Parker Testa. Here we bring in Ryan Hawk. He's an author and advisor, host of the Learning Leader Show, former quarterback at Miami of Ohio and Ohio University, formerly played arena football, and a native of Centerville, Ohio. Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Hey Parker, man, thanks for having me. It's good to be with you.
So you obviously played football formerly, and you kind of ventured into the business world. Your podcast is widely regarded the Learning Leader Show. I've listened to it myself. It's a really good listen. You feature lots of entertaining guests. My first question is, what is your take on leadership as far as it in what have you taken from sports and playing football and really orchestrated it into your business world and your podcast?
Well, there's similarities and differences, and I, when I got promoted to a leadership role in the business world, I noticed some of those differences from a football perspective. As a quarterback, you walk into a huddle. There's 10 other guys. You have to believe in the play call. You have to show confidence. Even some quarterbacks have a little bit of arrogance about them. Strong self-belief and belief in others. So there are similarities and differences. I would say that the similarities are trusting your teammates, believing in other people, being encouraging and helpful to those people, being a good listener. But I also learned quickly that when I got promoted, I had 17 people working for me, or 17 positions, 13 people and 4 open positions, that each individual was different and unique and had different styles and mannerisms in the way that they approached their work and their communication levels with me and what they wanted those to be. Whereas in football, I think that is the case in some regards, but not necessarily as much. It's more, we're going to go in here and show up and do the work every day. The coaches are going to yell. I may do a bit of that as a quarterback, but in the business world, it's more about understanding and learning about each individual personality and doing your best to coach and develop them in the way that they need that to happen. And so that was just a learning curve for me, that I had to figure that out as I went, and certainly made my fair share of mistakes and did enough to where we were able to be pretty good, but it just took a while to get there. But I'm proud of that, and that's ultimately why I wrote a whole book about that one jump in my career from going from an individual contributor to a management role.
You obviously you are a public speaker. You go around to different events and high schools, I assume, and speak to different crowds. When you're speaking to any crowd, depending on your audience, of course, what is one kind of topic or message that you try to portray ahead all over all others?
Well, so the reason that I named my podcast the Learning Leader Show is because when I think about the leaders in my life who impacted me the most and who have impacted others the most, is the fact that they are constantly working on themselves to improve, to grow, to get better, regardless of their accomplishments, awards won, whatever, money earned, whatever it may be. They were constantly working on bettering themselves. And the learning process and the learning cycle never stops. And so I try to let students or let anybody know that I'm speaking with that this idea of arriving doesn't exist. We're always becoming. And JJ Redick, another guy with a sports background who plays in the NBA, said that to me. We've never arrived. We're always becoming. And I think that's the mindset I try to share and preach with others that I'm working with, that regardless of the mountain that you're able to climb, that there are other mountains and we should continue looking for them and trying to climb them. Certainly take moments to appreciate what we've done and to celebrate with loved ones, but then to wake up the next day and get back after it and constantly work on developing yourself. So regardless of whatever you're able to accomplish, be grateful for the people in your life who have helped you accomplish those things, and then continue working on yourself to get better and better each day. And having a mindset like that, I found if you are consistent about it over time, it seems to be helpful.
You mentioned people in your life that help you become. If you don't mind me asking, who are some of those people that in your life that have really been an influence to you?
Well, I've been very lucky, Parker, primarily with just where I was born. I mean, I have incredible parents. I just talked to them, in fact, right before we connected. My mom and my dad have helped us immensely. I have two brothers. I'm in the middle, an older and a younger. And I would say that is the biggest stroke of luck of my life is the house that I was born into with my family that I still currently have. And those are the primary reasons as to why anything I've been able to do. And then next on the list for me would be two of my high school football coaches, the legendary Bob Gregg and Ron Ullery. And they gave me belief in myself when I didn't have it. And I think that's what an excellent leader and a coach has the power to do, is to push you to levels of performance that even you didn't think you were capable of. And I've taken a lot from those guys to try, when I work with other people, to help instill in them a belief that they can accomplish things that maybe they don't believe yet. And I take great pride in trying to do that. And again, I feel very lucky that I've been impacted by guys like that early in my life that really changed the trajectory of what I was doing, whether it was helping me earn a college scholarship, which then set me up to play football in college and a little bit afterwards, and all the lessons I learned through playing that great team sport. I owe it first and foremost to my family, and then next to them would be Ron Ullery and Bob Gregg.
You started your podcast, The Learning Leader Show, in 2015. Is there any like show that you've watched over the years that you tried to imitate early on when you started, or was it just kind of your own thing?
I'm a big Joe Rogan fan. So I've listened to Joe for a while. I like the interview style of Brian Koppelman. His show is called The Moment. Brian also wrote one of my all-time favorite movies, Rounders. And so you try to be your own person, but you probably end up copying those people because you listen to them so much. And so I would say those are the first two. And then in the sporting world, I listen to Bill Simmons a lot. And he kind of created his own niche of being a sports fan and a writer and a speaker. And so they probably had the biggest impact on me. And then from an interviewing style perspective, Terry Gross, she's at NPR, and I think she's done it for decades now when it comes to how she interviews people and the willingness to kind of go for it and to continue to push and to ask better follow-up questions and initial questions. So I'd say those are probably the first few people that I've followed, that I think about, that I probably mimicked without even realizing it, because it just, whenever you're doing, I think, anything from a creative perspective, you're going to be influenced by what you put into your mind, your body, what you're listening to. And so I would say they probably had the biggest impact on me. And it takes a while till you figure out and find your own voice and find your own style. At the beginning, you're probably more of an imposter and probably more of a copier of others. And I think that's fine. I think that's a natural process, whether you're a painter or you're designing cars, or you play music, or you're a podcast host, as you're going to be influenced by those that you listen to, that you watch, that you monitor, until you kind of figure your own path. And I'd say I'm still kind of doing that now, 6 years and 400 plus episodes in. I'm still figuring that out, but it sure is, Parker, I tell you, it's a lot of fun though, on that journey to kind of figure out, what's my voice? How am I unique? What am I bringing to the audience to help them better, become more effective leaders and improve their lives?
You played college football at Miami, and under a very notable NFL name, Ben Roethlisberger, who ultimately won that job. But I know that's something that's kind of a sore subject for you. But is there anything you took away from competing on the Miami team that you kind of use with your life today?
Yeah, I'm just very grateful for the opportunity. In the moment, how old are you, Parker?
I am 19.
Yeah, so like as your exact age, and I'm competing against somebody who, the quarterbacking world is different than the real world. In the quarterbacking world, only one guy gets to play at a time, at least. And so in order for me to win, he had to lose. In order for him to win, I had to lose. But in the real world, it's not like that. We can all help each other win, and there's plenty for all of us to go around. And so I would say I'm grateful for the opportunity to compete against someone who's world class at what I've done and what I did at the time when I'm 19, 20 years old. And I'm also grateful for the fact that at the time this was painful, but I'm grateful that I was able to stand toe to toe for a few years and it not be enough. And so for the late great Terry Hepner to stand us aside, I vividly remember we're playing the University of Iowa. We're both getting beat up pretty bad. We're both playing, we're rotating, we're playing multiple positions. It's a crazy game. Ben was playing well though. He was making plays even though they had more talent than us. And he looked at us both and said, Ben's the guy, and you're gonna back him up, and you're not gonna play quarterback unless he gets hurt. And if you think about my entire life up to that moment, I've been the starter on every single team, including as a freshman on the varsity team, as well as on the baseball field and the basketball court, playing football on every team. And in that moment, they tell you you're not going to play. It was devastating. It was beyond devastating. It was the worst thing that had happened up to that point. And I think for a 19, 20-year-old, it is great to have to go through that, because there's not you're forced to reflect and to try to understand, wait a second, life's not necessarily fair. Just because I really want it or because I work really hard doesn't matter. They don't care. They care about the results. And in this case, that guy, they believe, and they were right, that guy is going to get better results than you, regardless of how you feel or what you think. The world doesn't care. And I think it was good for me as a young, arrogant, cocky kid to get beat down a little bit, and for the world to tell me, we don't care how much you think you deserve this job. We don't care how much you want it or how hard you work. That guy's better than you. That's the reality. And I think that's good for people to have to go through, because it tells you, wow, I need to, this is how it goes. And so I like I said, I think that's a good thing for young people to go through, especially if the young people are like me, where you got probably a head that's too big. Or as my late grandpa used to say, my mom's dad, you need to be brought down a notch or two, and so it brought me down a notch or two. And I think it humbled me and probably made me better long-term as a leader than if I had not gone through that.
So you have your podcast. You mentioned you're over 400 episodes in. Is there someone that you really enjoyed interviewing or had a favorite interview over your course of 400 episodes?
So many, Parker. I'm so grateful.
I know that's a tough question.
It is. A few I would point to, just based upon what's happened since then. So first episode 78 with Kat Cole. I was not very good on that episode, but it didn't matter because Kat was so great. So Kat Cole was raised from a single mom, got a job at Hooters, and worked her way up to a VP role. She got a graduate degree before getting an undergraduate degree. Still the only person I know to have done that. Longer story. Worked her way up and got recruited out, was the president of companies, and now is out helping as an advisor with a bunch of companies. So I would say Kat Cole is number one. And then I would say General Stanley McChrystal, 4-star general, led 150,000 troops overseas, written a number of great books, served our country as a hero. And after I recorded with General McChrystal, he said, hey, I'm taking my class. He teaches a leadership class at Yale. I'm taking my class to Gettysburg for a couple days. You should come with us. And it was an amazing invite. I dropped everything and flew there. And we had a dinner the night before. We get up, we have a run before sunrise as the sun's coming up to the battlefield from our hotel. And he's got all these incredible special forces people lined up at different places on the battlefield. They're giving us these speeches about the importance of that particular battle. It was one of those days I'll remember forever. And at the end of it, I just decided to swing for the fences and said, hey, General McChrystal, I'm just finishing the manuscript for my first book. I can't think of a better person to write the foreword than you. Would you do it? And he said yes, and he did. And now, the foreword of my first book is written by General Stanley McChrystal. So I would say that holds a special place in my heart, because I've had him on a couple of times, and both of them are incredible. So Kat Cole and General McChrystal would be two that initially come to mind of favorites of mine.
You've interviewed many people: Kirk Herbstreit, Gary Vaynerchuk, Jay Billis.
Mm-hmm.
Is there somebody who's opened up more to you than you might have thought they would?
I try to do that with everybody. I actually just recently, it'll come out this Sunday, but I just recently spoke with Jeff Immelt, and he's not known to everybody, but he was a CEO at GE, General Electric for 16 years. He followed Jack Welch. Jack Welch was named by Fortune magazine as the manager of the century, so the greatest leader of the last 100 years, which is a pretty big person to follow. And Jeff struggled, and I admire how much he was willing to talk about how much he struggled, and his struggle ended up costing people a lot of money because their 401ks were tied up in GE stock, and it plummeted. And we talked about being heartbroken over that, and that's not a phrase I've used very often, but I said, "Are you heartbroken?" And he said, "Yeah, I am." And I think it was a pivotal moment for me. This guy's, worth like $1 billion, to look him in the eye and ask a powerful person like that about being heartbroken, and him to be so honest and say, "Yes, I am." And normally I don't like yes or no questions, but in that case, it was I think the best way to ask it. And to hear him talk about being heartbroken just in a way crushed me. Like it was an emotional moment. And I think those are really, really powerful. And so I'm happy to be able to bring those moments out in people where if they feel comfortable enough over the course of an hour, that they'll be willing enough to tell me that their heart is broken about some of the struggles that they've gone through. And so I would say that's one I'm really excited about for everybody to hear soon.
We talked about sports, and obviously this is a sports show. When you take a look at athletes in today's world, is there something that you see is maybe different from when you played, or at the high school level, or even the college level? Is there something that you've seen that's changed since the time that you played, as far as leadership roles go?
Well, they're just a lot better. I mean, first and foremost, whether it's Patrick Mahomes or high school kids. I mean, I watched the Centerville basketball team recently, led by one of my friends, Brooke Cups. His son Gabe is an amazing player, probably playing the NBA someday. And I'm just amazed at the skill level and the work ethic and everything they put into it. So when it comes to young people in sports, the future, I believe, is so bright. There is this deadly combination of talent and desire and work ethic and willingness to show up and do the work every day. Man, I just think that is so much more prevalent than it used to be. And that's why I'm excited. When people sometimes talk about kids or how they are earlier, I mean, I could have never done what you're doing right now when I was 19. It would have been a disaster. It just wouldn't have happened. It would have been a disaster. So I think when sometimes you, like, guys your age get a bad rap from older people because people like to bag on the generation after them. I say the opposite. I mean, I've spoken to high schools and colleges, and I get to meet these kids after I speak, and I'm blown away. I'm blown away by the future leaders that we have. I am bullish on it. I'm very excited. I just think it's awesome, man. I think it's awesome. Guys like you are proactive to go after and do something, get on the radio, reach out cold to somebody, ask to interview them, do the interview, be prepared. I mean, it's awesome, man. So I give you huge props. But as far as future in sports, I feel the same way. These kids work so hard. I've seen great stuff, and I'm excited for the future of sports based upon the level of skill and work ethic and determination in young people.
Ryan, I can't thank you enough for coming on here with me. I'll give you just a few minutes to plug your podcast and your book. So go ahead.
My podcast is called The Learning Leader Show. As I mentioned before, learningleader.com is where everything is. If people are on their phones, you can text learners to 44222 and you get everything I have for free, so that you can opt in and be part of the Learning Leader community, because my part of my mission is to build kind of a world of leaders that are constantly striving to work on themselves to improve for the betterment of everyone in their sphere that they are leading, whether it's at home or at work. I love learning leaders, and that's why I'm proud to be a part of that community.
Ryan, thank you so much for coming on here with me and talking with me for a few minutes. I can't thank you enough.
Thanks, Parker, man. It's good to be with you, bud.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening this week on The Perspective. We'll see you next Friday.